Hello and welcome to the Larson Hicks channel, Larson Hicks show, Larson Hicks podcast, whatever you want to call it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for stopping by. If you're new, I'd love for you to subscribe, and I'd love to have you join the conversation. So thanks for being here. I wanted to. This video is a part two, essentially, to a video I uploaded actually just a day or two ago, and I've already gotten a bunch of feedback on it, and just wanted to make some clarifications to the comment and to the video. If you haven't seen the video, I'll put a link somewhere here so that you can go back and check that one out after you watch this or before you watch this. However you'd like to go about doing this, it's your call. But so what that video was, the title was flaming. What do flaming libs, Baptists, and hardcore Presbyterians all have in common? And it's kind of a provocative title, but really it was like so many of my videos, which are really just me sharing a conversation that I've had, usually a conversation I've had multiple times recently, and this is one of those. And just by way of background, I'm an elder at a church here in Huntsville, Alabama, Trinity Reformed Church. And one of the things that's super important to us, that we care really deeply about, is unity and Catholicity within the church. And so we have, solid, settled doctrinal positions on these things, and on baptism in particular. We hold to the Westminster Confession of Faith, and it's a distinctly Reformed, Paedo-Baptist position, but we also are very interested in Catholicity. We think that Baptists, on the one end of the spectrum, if you think of it as like a spectrum, a covenantal spectrum, then you've got Baptist on one end of the spectrum, and you've got I don't know what you'd call it, truly Reformed, folks maybe on the other end of the spectrum. And we kind of place ourselves somewhere in the middle, but we really want to have, we want to extend charity, and we want to go beyond that. As a church, we practice credo baptism and paedo baptism. So, literally in the last couple of weeks, we've performed immersion baptisms that were on profession of faith. We have performed infant baptisms. We've performed household baptisms. And we've also even had our kind of version of basically like a baby dedication for a Baptist family that had a new baby. So we really want to put our money where our mouth is. I don't personally view Baptist or kind of the, I don't have a good name for it, but the more hardcore, fence the table, truly Reformed type folks. Again, I'm sorry if I'm using the wrong terminology, but people on that end of the spectrum, I respect them as well. And we would welcome both parties to our church as long as they were willing to get along and willing to be, to hold their convictions solidly, but also not cause trouble. And saying all that, I don't want to cause trouble, so I'm certainly not interested in trying to cause trouble here. And so what I want to do in this video is just clarify what it is I was saying and what it is I'm not saying. That's probably more important. So I used the example in that video of an extreme example of liberals, woke liberals who, when they raise their kids, they don't tell them that, they refuse to treat them like they're a boy or a girl. They try to be neutral and let their kids pick, whether they're a boy or a girl or something else. And I'm using that extreme example because it was an example that I experienced firsthand. I talked to a lot of these people when I lived in the Pacific Northwest and put on concerts. I talked to a lot of them and heard them tell that story. And I guess it caused me to reflect on my own my own doctrine, my own ideologies, my own positions, and ask, how is that impacting the way I'm raising my kids? What am I doing to my kids? And how are my convictions, biblical convictions, informing the way that I sort of lay out my own kids' identity, right? And and for me, it helped me kind of firm up and confirm my own convictions that I think, my Paedo Baptist and my Paedo Communion position. I believe kids should be baptized as infants, and I think they should be invited to the table as soon as they're able to eat, basically. And and so that's my view, and I think that experience for me helped me to look at that conversation and those ideas through a different lens, a lens that I hadn't really looked at it through before. And so I shared that story. I've shared that story several times when I've had conversations about this with friends, and just recently, as I mentioned in that video, had a conversation, and that family came back and said, actually, that really helped. That helped us. We were wrestling with some of these ideas, and that really helped drive a point home for them. And so I shared it with the hope that it would potentially have the same impact on other people, that it would be an opportunity to look at these questions through a different lens and sort of ask yourself, again, it's not a one-to-one correlation. And to be clear, what I'm not saying, and I hope that this was clear, but this is why I'm making the video, just to make it crystal clear, that I'm not saying I think Baptists or table fencing, hardcore reform folks, I'm not saying that I think either of them are causing psychological damage, or that they're psychologically abusing their children. I said that about what I think liberals are doing when it comes to sex and gender identity for their children. Again, as an extreme example, but I think there's corollaries. That's a good analogy to what we're doing with these doctrines. But I don't think anybody on, Christians along the spectrum, I don't think any are guilty of psychological abuse, and I certainly am not claiming that. What I would say is about all of that is that, first of all, I think love covers a multitude of sins, and thank God for that fact. And I'll say none of us, myself included, have all of our doctrinal positions sorted out perfectly, right? And won't, this side of glory. And so, thankfully, God uses us and blesses us and our children despite our imperfections, despite the things that we've gotten wrong. I may be wrong, right, about some of these particulars, but God is gracious to use use me and use the teaching that my wife and I are giving our children for their benefit. And so I don't think God is I don't view God as this mean dad who's just waiting to crush his children, right? He's not waiting for us to slip up and get something wrong so he can just crush us and curse us, right? And I think that's an important piece of all of this is fortunately none of us are really all of us are wrong in some way or another, and also none of us are really consistent, right, in every way. So I think to the kind of covenantal spectrum I'm talking about, I know just hardcore Baptist, Church of Christ, Nazarene folks who on a doctrinal level when it comes to this stuff are way on the other side of the spectrum than I am, who do a far better job of raising their kids than many people in my camp. And so that's true, and are raising faithful kids and are doing a wonderful job. And God bless them, and I think that's awesome. And then I'd say on the other end of the spectrum, I've seen the same thing. I have friends who are very dogmatic about fencing the table and about a really high bar for admitting anybody to the table, and they're doing a great job of raising their kids. And so I don't want to say that if you hold one of those positions, you are automatically committing some sort of grievous sin against your child. So if you took that away, or if you felt that way when you watched the video, I hope that this clears that up, because I really don't think that's the case. And as I said in that video, if you hold one of those positions, I certainly would invite you to think through this more and see if this doesn't bring up some new questions in your mind. But I also would carefully think through it, and I wouldn't make any rash decisions. I think we all need to value the faith that was handed down to us from our parents, and the tradition we've grown up in, and not lightly put that aside. I think all things being equal, you should hold on to and preserve the faith that was handed down to you. Test it, obviously, and if it's bearing bad fruit, in your life or in the life of the church around you, then I think it's worth reconsidering, right? But if you're on one end of those spectrums and in a healthy church where the Spirit of God is at work, where people are bearing fruit in their lives, then I think this shouldn't become like, well, Larson said this thing, and I think that's that's totally true, and now I'm on a crusade to like burn this church down to the ground. So I hope that's not how anybody took it. So yeah, that's most of it. Just a couple clarifying comments I wanted to make about the video. I don't do a lot of planning, when I sit down to record these things. This is really just as I've got a few spare minutes and I can like yell at the kids and ask everyone to be quiet for a few minutes so I can record something. I'm just kind of squeezing these in. I've got sort of a list of ideas for conversations I've been having or questions I've been thinking about. And when I get a few minutes, I just kind of hit record and talk. And so this isn't like a super intentional sort of like attack on any particular group of people. It's really just an outworking of conversations I've been having that I think have been helpful for me and have been helpful for some of my friends. And so I figure I'll just get on YouTube here and share them with you. So anyway, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll just keep on keeping on with this thing and keep recording videos and ranting and raving about whatever it is that I'm thinking about at the given time. So thanks again for joining me. If you missed the previous video, I'll try to put some links up so you can go to it. And thanks for tuning in. And I hope you subscribe. I hope you stick around. And I'd love to know you. If you want to comment and introduce yourself or shoot me a message, I'd love to chat. So, all right. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you.